Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're stepping off the sidelines and going right onto the pitch at Boston Stadium. And man, the matchup we're looking at today, it is absolutely dripping with history, emotion, and just incredibly high stakes. We are talking about Norway taking on Iraq. Now, right off the bat, you need to know this wasn't just another tournament game. Oh no, the sheer emotional weight of these two nations walking out of those tunnels and stepping onto that grass, it was palpable. You could literally feel it vibrating in the stands, and honestly, you could see it in the players' eyes. Two nations carrying the hopes of millions, ready to just battle it out.
So let's get into it with part 1, Return to the World Stage.
To really wrap our heads around the intensity of this matchup, we've got to talk about anticipation. Because really, this is a story defined by longing, by generations of fans who have waited and waited and waited for their moment in the global spotlight. I mean, look at this contrast. It brilliantly sets up the shared desperation of both squads before a single ball was even kicked. Norway is making their first appearance in 28 long years. Think about that. An entire generation of Norwegian fans has grown up only hearing stories of their past glory. And then you have Iraq. This is an incredibly passionate footballing nation that's endured a staggering absence of nearly 40 years from the world's biggest platform. Just imagine the pressure. Imagine the decades of waiting, the near misses, the heartbreak, all of it culminating in this exact 90-minute window. Both teams were desperate to prove they finally belong here.
Which brings us to Act 1, Trading Heavy Blows. The second the referee blew that starting whistle, all that pent-up energy from the past few decades just exploded. The match burst into absolute life, setting this frantic, electrifying pace right out of the gate. Norway decided immediately, hey, we are going to dictate the rhythm today. They didn't sit back, they took control of the ball. And the absolute maestro of this whole operation? Their captain, Martin Odegaard. He was out there pulling the strings, orchestrating the midfield, and basically forcing Iraq to play at Norway's preferred tempo. It was, quite frankly, a masterclass in early game management, bringing that European quality right to the forefront.
Now, if you think Iraq just rolled over and accepted that, you'd be entirely mistaken. By the end of the first half, we were looking at a chaotic, breathless scoreline of 2-1. But, those numbers alone, they hardly tell the full story of the absolute fireworks we witnessed out there.
We need to talk about this crazy, breathless 14-minute window that completely defined that first half. Down in the 29th minute, the inevitable happens, right? Norway strikes first with a close-range finish. But true to their fierce nickname, the Lions of Mesopotamia absolutely refused to back down. They absorbed all that intense pressure, and then, exactly 10 minutes later, in the 39th minute, the stadium completely erupts. Iraq's star striker, Aymen Hussein, capitalizes on a momentary defensive lapse and equalizes. I mean, what a massive moment. But the Vikings, they struck right back. Literally just 4 minutes later, in the 43rd, Norway restores their lead. It was a pure heavyweight bout of trading goals.
And the man responsible for Norway's 2 goals in that chaotic little flurry? Erling Haaland. Calling him the world's most feared marksman perfectly sums up his performance today. When Haaland broke the deadlock, and then when he mercilessly fired home that second goal right before halftime, he proved exactly why that moniker is 100% true. Latching onto a quick delivery, his lethal quality was just way too much to handle. He sent Norway into the dressing room with a really, really crucial psychological edge.
Okay, moving on to Act 2, the tactical pivot. As we rolled into the second half, that frantic end-to-end sprinting kind of shifted. The game stopped being this wild track meet and turned into a super high-stakes chess match between the two dugouts. And the burning question hanging over the entire stadium was this: could Iraq actually pull off the upset? Well, under the guidance of their manager, Graham Arnold, Iraq came out for the second half and completely adjusted their defensive shape. They tightened the screws, they shut down the passing lanes, and they started pushing incredibly hard for a second equalizer. Actually, for a really long stretch of that second half, Iraq looked like the more likely side to score. The tension was thick. You could literally feel Norway starting to sweat as that Iraqi resilience really shone through.
And that fatigue, it built right into the defining moment of the match. Norway's manager, Ståle Solbakken, recognized his squad was losing their momentum. His starting lineup was getting heavily fatigued under Iraq's relentless pressure. So, in the 72nd minute, he makes a massive, game-changing tactical decision. He looks to his bench and brings on fresh legs, specifically introducing Leo Østigård and Kristian Thorstvedt. It was a huge, calculated risk to try and inject some life back into his fading squad.
Which sets the stage for Act 3. Norway seals it.
Wow, did that tactical gamble pay off in spectacular fashion? It brings us to the emotional culmination of the match where the physical depth of the European side finally takes over. Just 4 minutes after stepping onto the pitch in the 76th minute, one of those fresh substitutes makes his mark. Leo Østigård outleaps absolutely everyone in the penalty box on a corner kick and just powers home this clean, towering header. 3-1 Norway. And man, you could physically see the air leave the Iraqi players. That goal effectively drained the last remaining reserves of energy out of a super valiant, hard-fighting Iraqi side. The depth of that Norwegian bench just proved to be way too much.
But the crucial thing to understand here is how Iraq responded in those dying minutes, because they didn't just give up. This brings us to the concept of a tactical foul. Basically, it's a calculated move to stop a dangerous attack and keep a team's faint hopes alive. We saw this perfectly illustrated by Iraq's Zaid Tessin. He takes a yellow card in the 86th minute for bringing down Haaland. And look, this wasn't about malice, not at all. It was about sheer grit and desperate bravery to stop a counterattack. You couple that with the Iraqi goalkeeper, Jalal Hassan, making a heroic one-on-one save to deny Haaland a hat-trick, and you see a team that was fighting with unbelievable pride, literally right until the bitter end.
Even with that fight, Norway simply wouldn't be denied. Deep into stoppage time, we're talking the 97th minute here. The other key substitute from that 72nd minute pivot, Kristian Thorstvedt, capitalizes on a loose ball. He just smashes home the fourth goal, putting the final nail in the coffin and securing a comprehensive 4-1 victory for the Norwegian side.
So, mapping out the entire dramatic arc, we see a story told in distinct chapters. We've got that tight, fierce exchange in the first half, minute 29, 39, 43, where it was truly anybody's game. Then, we have that long, tense drought during the tactical pivot. And finally, that late-game surge from the Norwegian substitutes at 76 and 90+7, punctuated by that desperate, fighting yellow card from Iraq at 86. It's a beautiful summary of how European quality ultimately overwhelmed an incredibly resilient Middle Eastern side.
Which leaves us with this final, burning thought. We've seen their captain effortlessly pull the strings. We've seen their star marksman prove his lethal reputation. And crucially, we've seen a manager utilize deep, really impactful tactical substitutions to break down a fiercely stubborn opponent. So, the question is, with this lethal finishing and this level of tactical depth coming right off the bench, just how far can this Norwegian squad go in the tournament? I mean, they've announced the return to the world stage with an absolute roar. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the stories that matter most.